Hello, I'm Philip Stoten. I'm joined by four gentlemen to discuss the topic of 5G in manufacturing. What these gentlemen have in common is they're all part of the 5G Open Innovation Lab. And we'll start with some introductions. If we can start with Rajeev from CLIP, if you can just give us a brief introduction to yourself and CLIP, and then we'll do the same with Sriny.
Hi, Phil. Hi, everyone. So my name is Rajeev Bhalla. I'm the CEO and co-founder of CLIP. CLIP is a digital transformation company focused on manufacturing data, logistics, and essentially visibility and control in manufacturing operations environments. And we have a very strong interest in 5G because we see 5G and 5G networks as a way of addressing fundamental security, data isolation issues within meeting the requirements of manufacturing. And, obviously I know Jim very well, and Thomas and Stephen, and my co-founder, Sriny. So I'll hand off to Sriny to introduce himself.
Sriny, whilst you're introducing, could you just give us a quick background of you and Rajeev as well, because you've obviously been in the automation space for some time.
Hey Phil, good to see you, and Jim, Thomas and Stephen, all good to see you all as well. Rajeev and I have been in the automation manufacturing space for the last 2 decades. We have spent our lives in factories trying to make products in a very high volume manufacturing space. We've worked at companies like Apple, and we spent almost a decade in hard disk drive industries where we're shipping disk drives every 90 million units a quarter, right? That's kind of the volumes that we would be shipping. And we've spent our energy in taking very manual processes and then either automating them or digitizing them. And in that process, we felt there's always a need for physical transformation, which is the mechanical automation, and then the software transformation, which is the digital transformation. And with CLIP, what we're trying to do is bring all of this together, and we see 5G as a major enabler in extending the connectivity and accelerating the digital transformation, which is what manufacturing is looking for. So Phil, very excited to be part of this panel and talk to you all.
Thank you. Tom, maybe you can give us a quick introduction to yourself and Avanade.
Absolutely. So excited to be on the panel with several very smart gentlemen. So excited about the conversation today. My name is Tom Nall with Avanade. I'm our global manufacturing and automotive industry director. If you're not familiar with Avanade, we're a joint venture between Accenture and Microsoft. So we really facilitate Microsoft technologies, and for me, that's in the industrial and the manufacturing and automotive spaces, and then bring in the Accenture thought leadership and consulting services as well. So I kind of think of us as the activation engine of Microsoft technologies to key Accenture clients, and then also clients that we work directly with as well. So yeah, like I said, super excited about the conversation. I agree, Sriny. I really see 5G as an enabler for especially the next several years for what our manufacturers are doing, really on the shop floor. Right, we've seen a lot of digital transformation in other parts of the business, but maybe not quite as much really on the shop floor. And I think 5G is a powerful enabler for that. So excited about seeing that for the future.
Okay, and Jim, last but not least.
Hey everyone, my name is Jim Brisimitzis. I'm the founder and general partner of the 5G Open Innovation Lab here in Seattle, Washington. We started the lab because we see a software ecosystem that could thrive in the context of 5G, all in support of digital transformation for enterprises. We launched our first program in May of 2020, and since then we've had the fortune to work with 71 amazing teams from around the world, including CLIP Automation. We're proud to be partnered with 16 partners from around the world as well, including our friends over at Avanade and Microsoft and others.
Okay, and Can you briefly give me an idea of how the Open Innovation Lab works and the kind of projects that you've been collaborating on there? Anybody who's feeling the urge can chime in on that one.
Sure, I'm happy to go first. The Open Innovation Lab is really about an open ecosystem. And before we get to what it does, to demystify a little bit about what 5G is, if we ignore sort of the commercials that you see about 5G on your personal handsets, what's happening behind the scenes is that CSPs, Telstra in Australia as an example, or here in the United States, T-Mobile, they're moving their back-end network operations from monolithic systems, virtually closed, to more open cloud-native systems. And that's really transformational, not just for how CSPs deliver their connectivity services, but the potential for these networks to be able to maybe compute applications on the edge. In any given country around the world, CSPs have a very dominant footprint when it comes to edge because of all the POPs and central offices that they support for delivering connectivity services. Now, what was missing was they really didn't have access to the software ecosystem, the same software ecosystem that has made cloud computing as successful as it has been, and certainly our mobile devices as successful as that has been as well because of the apps. So the 5G Open Innovation Lab was really designed to build that software ecosystem by pulling together innovative startups, global platforms, and then enterprise customers, many of which, and Clip Automation is working with one of them, are exploring the capabilities of wireless and edge computing as a way for them to digitally transform. And of all the industries out there, manufacturing, logistics is in the top 3 of industries that are really exploring wireless connectivity through cellular because of the limitations that they have seen with Wi-Fi.
So which of the others are those top 3?
Transportation logistics is high up in there, and then mining and energy is another one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sriny, Rajeev, tell us a bit about your kind of journey with 5G Open Innovation Lab and the projects that you've been working on there.
No, we got introduced to 5G Oil and Jim through some mutual acquaintances, and what we realized was we were actually a massive consumer, and as soon as we learned of data services, and what we learned was as soon as we learned what Jim and the team were doing, we're like, hey, we're very interested in this space because as supply chain and manufacturing and operations guys, we have been dealing with these closed monolithic systems that Jim described. And one of the major barriers that we run into, Phil, is when we go into a factory, we can connect to the equipment, we can connect to the processes, we can extract the data, but what we struggle with is somewhere along the line, we have to put this data on somebody's network. And there is a lot of fear and trepidation in manufacturing environments to change existing networks because of bandwidth, because of security, because of privacy, because of, hey, guaranteed message delivery, because of latency concerns about, an example might be, please don't put runtime vision data on an active lookup network that's basically hitting a database to get an update, because that's going to cause, microseconds or milliseconds of delay that aggregate up. And so our concern has been that because of the challenges and then putting down new wires, new lines, networks become a major barrier to entry. In implementing digital transformation, it requires physical infrastructure change. And so for us, just the opportunity to look at wireless, and there's some limitations in just Wi-Fi wireless in terms of bandwidth, in terms of latency and connectivity. So the opportunity to use 5G to address those concerns is just massively promising. And then there's obviously benefits, for example, in terms of lower latency, in terms of moving away from just updates in the seconds range into the milliseconds or tens of milliseconds. So there's a lot of advantages when you actually move the controls locally, but move wireless. So it's just a very exciting opportunity for us. And so for us, it was just, we want to consume this technology and bring it into our factory environments.
Yeah. And Sriny, have you actually seen projects and collaborations through the 5G lab that have really started to incrementally move things forward for you?
What happened for us was getting into 5G Open Innovation Lab really exposed us to the ecosystem. Yeah. Before that, we were thinking about a certain way of how we could apply 5G. But then with Jim and team, and also the courts who are also part of this ecosystem, and also the sponsors like Microsoft and Avanade and others, what we started to realize, it's just not 5G. It's the combination of 5G with edge compute, and how all of this comes together is suddenly opening up a huge opportunity to go innovate in the manufacturing space. Traditionally, manufacturing has been very slow to migrate to cloud, right? And trying to put 5G and trying to get data and send it to cloud and then bring it back to the factory back is very difficult. And that's why 5G combined with on-prem solution like the edge compute, which is the multi-edge access, the combination of those two and the software that could sit on top and now start mining all of the data within the factory and start building locally without access to any cloud or anything else is a game changer for manufacturing. And what the 5G oil team did for us is connect us to all the right folks who could then start building this ecosystem together. It is a naive ecosystem. People are trying to understand the challenges, but 5G oil did enable us to bring that collaboration together. We've got 2 or 3 programs where we are in the early engagement of POCs and see how we could take it to the next step. One possible opportunity that we presented to was a company, BMW. We presented to BMW because of the 5G oil collaboration, and they were very interested in what we were trying to do. And they've said, hey, let's go back, review it, and come back and tell you if there's opportunity for us to leverage this technology.
Yeah, excellent. Tom, I wanted to come to you. I watched a video that you were hosting recently after the Hanover Messe, and you were all very excited about 5G. You're all very excited about going back to trade shows again in real life, which I thought was interesting too. But tell me a bit about your experience with 5G labs and with what was the enthusiasm like at Hanover Messe? It's always a good weather vane for what's going on in the very high scale manufacturing industry.
Yeah, absolutely, and I was really excited and maybe even a little bit surprised at the interest over 5G and kind of next generation connectivity. Rajeev and Sriny have hit on it. Manufacturers have typically been a little hesitant to adopt cloud on the shop floor. In general, maybe to adopt be early adopters of specific technologies, but I really probably half the questions I entertained were around the metaverse, and another close to half of the folks I talked to said, well, what are we doing? What are we seeing that's really revolutionizing the shop floor, right? And the ability to create private networks, to have the performance that takes care of the latency issues, because the last thing a manufacturer is going to do is slow down production or put something on the shop floor that's going to risk production, right? So how do I maintain the speed that I need to? How do I move those workloads to the edge instead of going to the cloud? And 5G as an enabler to really activate those digital capabilities on the shop floor is starting to become mainstream, right? And we hear a lot about and this isn't new, but the convergence of IT and OT. And that's where it happens, right? That's happening in your shop floor control systems, in your MES systems, in your automation systems on the shop floor. And again, 5G is really opening that world up. So as an enabler to continue that convergence of IT and OT, as an enabler to continue that digital transformation journey, that so many manufacturers need to go on, right? Because again, enabling automation on my shop floor also helps me alleviate what the biggest challenge I hear from manufacturing CEOs is, and that's I don't have the skilled people that I need to run my facilities as effectively as possible. So if I can augment that, lack of talent, lack of skill sets with automation as much as possible, that's something that manufacturers are looking to invest in.
Wow, a lot to unpack there, Tom. Metaverse we'll come back to. I kind of wonder if that's where all the digital twins of our factories live, in this strange manufacturing metaverse, but we'll come back to that. When I've talked to people over the last, I guess we're almost 10 years into this Industry 4.0 journey, and I don't think we've made the progress we should have made. And a lot of the first 5 years, connectivity seems to be slowing us down. The view that I get is that if we could take the connectivity of our data as for granted as we take the connectivity of our electricity in the factory, our power, if it was that simpler plug and play model, we could make a lot more progress in terms of that digital transformation. Is that the way you see it, and is that the way your customers see it? It's almost like we're spending so much time in the weeds of getting stuff connected and getting the data moving about fast enough and getting those connectivity standards that the insight and the value add that goes on top of that is almost being slowed down by that. What do you think, Rajeev? Maybe get your thoughts on that.
I think the first step, if we step back a little bit and look at Industry 4.0, and then we think, the goal of digital transformation is really achieving higher levels of efficiency or productivity. And if we start with that, and then we think what we want to do is, if we can know what's happening in all the different places, if we can solve a fundamental connectivity challenge in a very diverse controls and data ecosystem, where manufacturing is not consolidated around a few protocols or a few languages. There's hundreds, and machines right next to each other from the same countries may be running different operating systems, different languages, different protocols, and don't have the ability to talk to each other. So the basic challenges around connectivity need to be addressed. And 5G starts addressing a lot of the challenges that have prevented connectivity.
Yeah.
Right. And manufacturing is fundamentally a very conservative industry. We're not, as a manufacturing guy, I'm not always interested in peak efficiency. What I'm really interested in is consistency. Right? If I have two machines, maybe they can operate at 99%, but if I can both to produce reliably and repeatedly at the same level, that's a bigger win in manufacturing than hitting peak capacity or peak productivity. It's really about consistency. And so solving fundamental connectivity issues using 5G is a fundamental building block. The next step, then you start getting visibility and observability. And then you get to where I think you're getting to, which is, hey, how do we do the analytics? How do we get we've got the data now, we've connected, we've extracted the data, and Phil, this is something you've said before, right? How do we get from data to insight to value, right?
Yeah.
So I think we're building the fundamental building blocks, and for us, it's just so right. Manufacturing is just so right for this transformation. Because it is conservative, because it doesn't want to absorb new technology unless there's some level of reliability associated with it.
Yeah, and I think those 2 points of having that data for improving efficiency, that's one part of it, but that visibility thing is huge. And a few years ago, well, maybe a couple of years ago, there was this trend to talk about the glass factory, this idea that OEMs could see inside their contract manufacturer's factory and see where projects were in processes and see how processes were performing. And some contract manufacturers thought that was a great idea, and others were terrified by that idea. At the moment, we're hearing a lot of people asking about this idea of a glass pipeline where they can see into the supply chain for the same reason, because actually the supply chain is slowing down what's happening in the factory more than what's happening in the factory is right now. So there are lots of challenges there. Tom, is kind of data visibility a big part of it? Is that a big part of what you're doing between Accenture and Microsoft and Avanade?
Absolutely, I'd say it's the biggest part of it. That's typically the starting point is either, there's still a lot of manufacturers out there who aren't as connected as they should be and haven't built those building blocks of a connected factory. But we almost always start with I'm trying to solve a problem and I need the data to do that. And we mentioned digital twins, right? They've been a hot topic for the last couple of years. And what we found is when we engaged with a client around a digital twin conversation and unpacked it, what we realized is we in almost all the cases, we don't have at scale those connectivity building blocks in place that we need to collect the data that we need to do the analytics. So let's start with connecting a line and connecting a factory, harvesting that data, applying our machine learning algorithms and our artificial intelligence algorithms, building a digital twin of your facility. But it all boils down to, like Rajeev said, the building blocks of connecting that factory in the first place. So you can't, you can't improve efficiencies. You can't have consistency. You have the supply chain problems, but it's just as important to maintain, the critical assets on my shop floor. That impacts my supply chain. If a machine goes down, I'm in trouble. So the predictive maintenance piece, you can't do any of that without data, and you can't get the data without the connectivity, right?
Yeah. And just on that digital twin thing, is that where the metaverse comes into play? Is that the kind of questions you were being asked on that?
Absolutely. But, it ranged from what exactly is the metaverse, which I don't think anybody's truly got an answer to yet, to, how are our manufacturers using the metaverse to, if I'm not already in the metaverse, am I behind the game? And so they were all over the board, and again, and that's okay. We're still so early in, and I couldn't even define for you what the metaverse is. I absolutely think a digital twin is a big component of it, as are extended reality, types of AR and VR and tools like that are a part of the metaverse. But you can look at what are we doing with crypto and NFTs, and how can we transact commerce in the metaverse. So there's still so many places we can go. But again, I think the core component is, what is a business problem you're trying to solve? What is your biggest headache? What is your customer's biggest headache? What are you trying to do to become a better manufacturer? Let's look at that first. And then if metaverse type of capabilities help, if a better client experience that you can deliver through the metaverse is what you're trying to drive for, then let's go there. But if, again, it's just connecting and pulling data from a machine, I don't need the metaverse to do that. So my advice always is, start with the challenge that you're trying to solve, and then we'll figure out the right technologies to put in place to solve that.
Yeah, start in the real world before you start to fix things in the metaverse, wherever that is. Sriny, when you talk to customers and prospects about digital twin, does the term metaverse come up, or are they pretty much focused on the digital twin idea that we've had for the last 4 or 5 years?
I was in Semicon, and there was a huge, we had a booth as well, and there was a huge push towards smart manufacturing, right? The word smart manufacturing, and I'll connect the dots with digital twin and the metaverse as well. They all are kind of the same thing, but it's being played with different words. And then there's the industrial verse, which is the the manufacturing version of metaverse, right? It comes down to, what people want to do is they want to predict and they want to know, how do I change my day-to-day work based on what's happening around my environment? And if I'm able to simulate that and understand that, so I can be better prepared when I get into my office as an operations manager or production manager, know what my options are and the tools I need to make the changes to avoid risk and meet those numbers that they need to meet, right? So there's an understanding gap between the capability of a digital twin versus the actual use case, which is where I think as technologists, we have to invest in bridging the gap. One of the things that CLIP does, and this is where CLIP's value really is understanding the metric of what a smart manufacturing means. Right? If you say you are smart manufacturing, what are the metrics that determine that your manufacturing plant is actually smart? Right? Yeah. The way people are evaluating today is they're thinking about, if I apply AI and ML, that means I'm smart. But nobody's focused on what are the outcomes of the AI and ML that defines the metrics that's going to be ultimately going to improve your EBITDA for your company, right? Yeah. The bridging that model and the connectivity is missing. Mm-hmm. Digital twin has the potential to connect all of this and give you scenario analysis so you could play your options. It's an extended video game of your factory where you see all your scenarios so you're better prepared for the day when the incident occurs, then you know what options are able to do. Now, to get to that state, I think 5G becomes very important because to me, smart manufacturing, number one is connectivity, which is how I connect and get everything together. That's the first step which 5G enables. Second, which is the most important part, is now we've got a lot of people looking into smart AI, ML algorithms, but sending it to cloud, running it in the cloud, and then getting it back into the factory, in some cases may be okay. In some cases, it may be time sensitive, but they don't have the ability to do that, which is where edge comes in. And if you're able to do that on the edge, now you're within the factory, you're able to do everything within the time slices. You connect the data connectivity and the intelligence that we needed to do predictive maintenance and others. You bring them all together. And finally, the most important part is, am I able to react back to the changes and be adaptive with whatever the outcomes are? And if we can close the loop and be adaptive, then I believe that you reach the true state of where I could say I'm able to be in a better state than where I am, which gets into smart manufacturing. And for you to complete that full cycle, you need the digital twin as a tool to achieve it. And there's a lot more effort that needs to go in to bridge what the customer wants and the benefits of what they're going to get to getting into that, and which is a kind of where I think the technologists are trying to put together and bring it to the manufacturers.
Yeah, and it's enabling that digital transformation. I've been using the term transformative transformation recently, which sounds a bit strange, but I think we got to the point where we were doing digital transformation or we were trying to do digital transformation for transformation's sake and not really understanding what the end goal is. And when I talk about transformative transformation, the idea is it's transformative for the business. So it's taking that digital strategy and overlaying it with the business strategy and making sure they're fully aligned. And I think people are starting to do that, because when we were early to this Industry 4.0 journey, there was not so much we could do. It was, there were inspection systems or there were feedback loops between certain machines, and now there's a lot more available to us, so it's a lot more holistic. So we're not just in this mode of do something, get started on this digital journey. You can actually be a little bit more considerate. Jim, I'm curious from the Innovation Lab's point of view, how thoughtful are people about aligning strategy or their business strategy with their digital strategy? Do people come to you with issues of digital transformation, or do they come to you with business issues that they see digital transformation as a solution to?
That's a great question, Tom. We see two sides of that equation. We see great teams like Clip that are innovating and creating new solutions to problems of today, and then certainly problems of the future. And those vary from the stuff that Clip's doing to other technologies involving big data, augmented reality, Kubernetes, and distributed computing, and a whole sorts of things. On the flip side, we have a number of customers that we've had the privilege to work with, and they don't necessarily know what it is they're looking for, but they understand where their limitations are, and they're looking for folks like Clip that are solving some of those problems. What I've heard in the manufacturing space is really a few things. One is many manufacturers are tied to physical connections with their machineries, and they need to move to wireless. And Wi-Fi's had some great capabilities, but as they continue pushing on the data side and security side, they're really exploring what's called private 5G, so dedicated 5G services, as a means to address some of the limitations that they're having today with Wi-Fi. But once we go beyond that, many customers, enterprises, are also looking at how do they deliver better experiences to their field services folks, for instance, using augmented reality. One of our teams called Tactile is doing that. Surgeons are looking to augmented reality as a way to actually bring expert knowledge into surgeries while they're having surgery, doing surgeries to improve the outcomes of patients and such. So, what I've always said is that 5G isn't a destination. Neither is edge computing. It's an enabler, just like cloud computing is an enabler, and just like our mobile phones are enablers, right? And so we try to quickly get past the hype on 5G and then start to look at, to your point, Tom, some of those real hard problems that enterprises are having. What I could say is enterprises see the limitations they exist in today, and they believe that private 5G, private wireless, cellular wireless with edge computing is going to play a role in those solutions long term, and they're starting to invest in testing those today. And that's why I think groups like Clip are really starting to show some capabilities. Rajeev, Sriny mentioned BMW Group was in. That's a great use case, and several use cases that they're exploring where connectivity really matters. And there's other teams like Standard Industries, who is a partner of ours as well, that's looking at complete lights out manufacturing. That's kind of where manufacturing is going. Automation is going to play a critical role in that. Robotics is going to play a critical role in that. The collection and computation of data, big data, is going to play a big role in that. And today's capabilities are there, but with private 5G and edge computing and IoT, and to what Clip Automation is doing, bridging the gap between OT to IT, I think that's transformative. Yeah. The other thing I'd say is that enterprises are sort of tired of this whole digital transformation stuff. It's some cases people see it as another marketing buzz. Most are just looking to be more efficient. And that's a poignant point when you think of what we just went through and probably still are going through with COVID, right? When everything was shut down and they couldn't get people into warehousing or manufacturing. So that really spurred, and our friends at Avanade have seen this in spades, that has really spurred a lot of investment from IT professionals and CIOs on investing in automation, investing in data, investing in IoT, because when the next COVID event or whatever event happens where there's disruptions, they want to be resilient, right? And they're building networks and capabilities around that resilience.
It would be wonderful to think that the digital transformation journey we started years ago had got us ready for the COVID pandemic, and it just proved that we weren't ready. It proved that we weren't quick enough. So we need to be ready for the next disruption. And I think a lot of people have gone through the trade war, and then they've gone through the pandemic, and now they're going through component shortages, and they've realized that disruptions are kind of part of their everyday life. So I think people are starting to design for disruption.
And we've talked about the fatigue around digital transformation, right? And one of the things that Accenture and Avanade, we recently did a kind of a technology study, and what we found is that there is fatigue, and it's no secret in the marketplace that you hear the term POC purgatory as well, right? I'm not getting things out of POC to scale and drive value to my business. What we found in some market research that we did is the companies that are best able to receive the value, to get out a POC, are looking at combinations of technologies across multiple pieces of the business. So instead of saying, I'm going to do one little thing over here with this group and one little thing over here, let's look at things that can scale across the entire business, and combining, data and AI with digital twin, with business applications, with 5G. But let's not do them in technology and departmental boxes. And we're moving beyond that digital transformation POC and really into where we're driving value to the business, right? And another really interesting kind of side component of that is that the companies that are doing that are also more attractive to talent. So, when smart people see companies investing broadly in technologies, they want to come work for them. So there's all kinds of value drivers to making those cross technology types of investment.
There's if I look at manufacturing, logistics, what Clip is doing, what Thomas and Avanade is doing, there's a very interesting set of trends and movement in the industry. And really, it's something that I really appreciated about Jim and 5G Open Innovation Lab are doing, because the reality is it is an open system. Everybody's figuring things out. There's consumers, there's power users, there's significant solution ecosystem players. And what's happening but it's happening in a very open way where everybody's doing their own thing. And one of the things that I'm really appreciating about Jim and about the 5G Open Innovation Lab is it's acting as a forum for us. It's acting as an ecosystem introduction for us, right? Everybody sees an aspect of the elephant, if you will. So some people are in front, some people are in the back. They see their element of it and they go, hey, I see this enabling capability that can significantly change how I do things. And so when we're talking about, digital transformation, and we're talking about how do we, and then the fatigue that's setting into digital transformation. What we're also noticing is, yes, that is happening, but we're noticing this other thing, and you're seeing this solution starting to coalesce around what I experienced last week. I was up in Seattle and I met with Jim and the 5G team, and there were customers there were consumers, there were people who were like, hey, I help you do bandwidth management, hey, I do this element of this. And all of a sudden, for us, it was an exposure to, there are a lot of people who are experiencing this and see this opportunity. And we're starting to coalesce down certain groups. And one of those is obviously the 5G Open Innovation Lab. And so for us at Clip, we want to consume this technology and leverage 5G to solve the kinds of problems we want to deal with, right? Like process inefficiencies, operator errors, eliminate scrap. How do we integrate better enterprise data? And for us, just leveraging 5G technology and have access to a forum where everyone can come together is just really powerful. So there are other trends that I think should help us amplify our journey in digital transformation.
Yeah. Jim, from a point of view of the Open Innovation Lab, what are the kind of key tools that you use to get everybody together? Rajeev refers to it as a forum. How do you see it, and what do you need to do? Is it get-togethers? Is it sharing data? Is it creating virtual networks? Does 5G Open Innovation Labs exist in the metaverse?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Maybe someday. Well, we're in batch. We expose all of our teams, clipping one of them to our partners, and so that the 12 weeks of the program, we run 2 of them a year, are the places for new teams to get engaged and network their way into all of our partners. So we do that. We also run 2 events a year. We just had our summer social. That was the event that Rajeev was mentioning. I think we had about 120 people, 130 people show up to that. So that's one forum, and then we do a similar forum in the December timeframe, and it's usually for the newer teams for that year to meet and greet. But we're also finding, and the summer social was a great reminder of that last week, is that we'll have alumni come in from previous batches and they start networking with other teams. And so we like to think of ourselves as sort of the town square, a forum, as Rajeev pointed out, that brings a lot of these folks together. And from a teaming perspective, where Clip was when we first met them, they've evolved quite a bit. I imagine the next 60 days to 6 months to a year, they'll evolve even more. And so these forums just become places where they can continue to stay in touch with partners and startups. And we're really proud of, of doing that. We're also in the process of launching our portal, which will have itself an online forum. So we try to encourage founder to founder and partner to founder engagements via that as well.
Yeah, that's hugely valuable.
Yeah, I'll just add to that, because it is hugely valuable, right? I mean, and Jim, you mentioned, Florin and Aaron, and Florin's Avanade CTO, and Aaron runs our emerging tech group. But technology is changing fast, not just for our customers, but for us, right? So for us to have the opportunity to collaborate with other industry leaders, with other technology leaders, to understand, how to harness this rapidly, we get so much value out of partnerships like the one with the, that we have with Open Innovation Lab. So yeah, and I think Rajeev mentioned it too. Super, super important for us to help our customers take advantage of technologies that can improve their businesses. So Jim and Rajeev, I think great point. So
yeah, and there's endless value in finding your own network, finding the right network for your business, finding the right network where you're going to be within an ecosystem where you can learn from each other, where people can be open and they can collaborate, and you can all gain from it and you can all benefit. And I'm sure within those events there are lots of sidebar meetings where people are collaborating on specific projects and building out different ideas. Just before we wrap up, just give me a bit of a prediction. Where are we going with this 5G rollout, and particularly in manufacturing? What do you see happening in the next, 6 to 12 months? Tom, perhaps start with you.
Yeah, I do really see the convergence of IT and OT. I think that we're going to see the automation on the shop floor really accelerate, and I think we're going to see acceleration of the analytics tools that go along with that, like machine learning and artificial intelligence, to take advantage of that. But it's the one, manufacturers have done a pretty good job of collecting data about their customers and maybe about their products that are in the field, whether it's in an industrial usage or even consumer goods from the retailers they work with. They haven't done as good a job of figuring out what's really happening on the shop floor. And I think 5G is going to enable that and enable a lot of other technologies to help harvest that and utilize that information. So
yeah. Sriny, Rajeev, some breakthroughs, some game-changing stuff that's going to push the fatigue away?
I think I have a short-term, medium-term, and a long-term prediction of how this industry is going to go.
Very good.
I think the short-term is going to be mostly focused on trying to get every bit of dollar out of cost savings and OpEx right now. And they're going to make the investment towards physical automation. There is a huge labor shortage in the US. I think people are going to focus on how do I not depend on labor and focus on the physical transformation. Right after that, now we've got all these machines. We need to make sure these machines there's the talent needed to maintain these machines and make sure that they're functioning, which is where connectivity comes in. So I think there's going to be need for, some level of universal translators that could connect and bring all of this data together, right? And then there's going to be definitely a resistance still manufacturing to go to cloud, like how the fintech and others did. And I think edge is going to enable this transformation and going to give people, the manufacturers, the kind of security that everything still stays within my factory, and I'm still able to use AI and ML to do predictive analysis, predictive maintenance, and running what-if scenarios. And once they're able to unblock that in the next 1 to 2 year, maybe 3-year horizon, then I think the technology would be ready for leveraging 5G as a wireless technology. And if I take my biggest prediction, which is in 2030, I think connecting with LAN and Ethernet wires would be something from the past inside factories, where I see robots are able to, the drones, the mobile robots, the stationary robots are able to co-work with people, and all of them are being wirelessly connected using either whatever technology, whether it's 5G or Wi-Fi 6. Wireless is going to get there. It's going to break the barriers. By 2030, I think you're going to see that is my wireless prediction.
Yeah, and I think that's an exciting point, and that does get to the point where we almost take that data connection to the machines as for granted as the power. Rajeev, what are you thinking?
From my standpoint, Phil, we're at CLIP, we're focused on how do we make sure we're helping our partners become competitive in global markets, right? And one of those key metrics is efficiency, however it's defined. It could be quality, it could be yield, it could be uptime, it could be availability, it could be asset utilization. Our view is at CLIP, what we want to do is we want to create the metrics and the KPIs that allow the measurement and tracking of these kinds of things. So for us, it could be, for example, it could be overall efficiency or OEE or effectiveness, right? We want to create a data system that allows a quantifiable way to say, hey, if I'm an operations executive, if I'm lower, and I want to know what is the state of my machine, what is the state of my system, and is it better than last month? Is it work? Am I improving? Where are my opportunity areas? We want to create an ecosystem that allows us to quantify this and measure this, and it's all through data. So for us, it's big data. It's connecting IT and OT. And then it's measuring them and systemically allowing these improvements to kind of propagate through manufacturing. And that's what we're trying to do, right? That's the flip system, which is all this. So for us, it's just really exciting times, right? Because 5G is such an amplifier. Digital transformation actually allows the data to come in. So, and it's been historically complicated and sometimes impossible to initiate. And so a lot of the building blocks that are needed are finally starting to come in place. So it's just good times.
And if 5G becomes that technology that makes some of this stuff feel like it's plug and play, I think that'll make a huge difference. Jim, last word from you. What do you see as the developments in the coming months and years?
I'll be slightly controversial on this, Philip. If anything, I see 5G as programmable networking with edge computing. I think the CSPs are sitting on a gold mine. Many of them want to take their 4G LTE playbook and play it again in 5G and hope for different results. We had an executive at Microsoft, formerly, he was the chief operating officer, called Kevin Turner, and he would say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So my controversy is I think 5G is a turning point for the communications industry. I think that, they should really be taking the enterprise 5G opportunity real seriously, and that their networks are gold mines of opportunity for great software applications and solutions that are built by software to be running on those networks, just like Clip Automation. And I think there's GSIs like Avanade and Accenture that are full bore taking that opportunity forward. And I'd love to see the CSPs really explore that in a much deeper way.
Yeah, and think in a transformative way as well as doing the digital transformation.
Yeah, short story. When I was at Microsoft for almost 13 years, we were sort of laughing at this unreality of an online bookstore selling cloud services. That was Amazon, early days of AWS. We weren't laughing, shortly thereafter when it became a $40 billion business and a big inspiration behind where Azure is. And so if your mindset is that you can't do something, of course you won't. If your mindset is, hey, it's worth exploring, let's see what's possible, great things could happen from that.
Yeah, and that's a great vision to have as the leader of the Open Innovation Lab as well. It's going to encourage people to think outside the box. Guys, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for your thoughts, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Thanks, Tim.